Hello viewers, my name is Ndloviji from Selborne College. I'm an IT teacher. Welcome to Eastern Cape Department of Education Broadcasting Studio. Today's lesson is about IT Phase 2. I'll be covering two subtopics to back your full understanding. I'll first of all look at database connectivity, and then we go to the program design. Just to kick off, you know that you have submitted your phase 1. It is very important that phase 1 is in and phase 1 is done properly with all the documentation. We're going to talk about databases today because you had already designed and presented how databases are going to look like in your program. First and foremost, there are things that you need to know whenever you're doing database development. You need to make sure that your table follows the proper naming conventions. We know that whenever we have got our databases, the table names should always start with TBL. Make it a norm that you always start your tables with TBL. That makes it easy for programming, that whenever you're programming, if you write the prefix TBL, the name of the table will come up. So follow the proper naming convention. For example, if you have something like table animals, or even table tasks, that is very important that you prefix there with TBL. The field names are the second things that you need to make sure that you do properly. Avoid spaces in table names. Avoid spaces. Join, if ever a field name has got two words, join the two words together. Join the two words together so that it becomes also easy to program that particular field name. Make sure that your database has got proper data types, date and time, text, auto number. Not all of them should just be text. We know that the default field size for text in Access is 255 characters, but that actually wastes a lot of storage space. You need to change that to about 20. Any number where you feel that the names or the data that you're punching into the database can fit. That will also make your database easily appear on your DB grid if the size is smaller. You need to set up relationships of your tables. You need to set up the relationship of your tables. You do that through the use of foreign keys and primary key. I hope we all know that the primary key is a distinct field in a database. There is normally table 1 and a second table. It is a requirement that you have two tables, and those two tables should be connected to each other through primary key with a foreign key. That's where we talk of relationships like one-to-many, one-to-one relationships. So make sure that you connect your database so that there is what? There is relationships. Relationships will also help us move on. If we are querying one database table, we can actually connect to the second database using a joiner. You did that, or you have done that when you're doing your SQL. Whenever you say where table 1.primary key equals table 2.foreign key. So if that relationship is not there, it will be difficult for you to query two tables. From there on, you should be ready to actually do database connectivity. Database connectivity can be done through coding, which is dynamic, and part of the rubric wants you to make sure that you are connecting the database or you are using a dynamic code in your program. So if you take the opportunity to connect the database through coding, that constitutes a dynamic component or a dynamic coding. So you will get marks if you use dynamic connectivity. If not, follow through connection string, and the best that you can do is create a data module. We'll have a separate video where we look at how to connect through a data module, and how to connect through a connection string, and how to connect through coding. If you connect your database, then you are good to go. Let's quickly look at the rubric. The rubric says database design. So your teacher, when you present your final PET, they will ask you to present. When you're presenting, the teacher might ask you to, first of all, open up your database. And as you can see right there, it says two related tables. Suitable fields, data types, and sizes, large, adequate data volume. Your database is supposed to have enough data. Do not just put 3 records and think that is enough. Whenever we're querying a database, we need a substantial amount of data so that we can easily see that your database is working properly. So please make sure that you have got about 20 records on the database. I will say that is sufficient enough, but that will all depend on your teacher, because the rubric is saying adequate data. Let's avoid just putting 2 or 1. They don't make sense. So that is the first thing that we need to make sure we have done, connecting the database and making sure that the database is working properly. The second thing, you had done GUI design. Part of your phase 1, you were working on GUI design. On GUI design, you gave us screenshots of how your program will look like, although that was a plan. But now we are looking at the real program. We want to look at your different forms. We want to look at how your form looks like. We want to look at whether the form has got enough tools in it. There are enough components that you have added there. There are screen tips, there is feedback, there is help menu, just in case someone is stuck on that screen and does not know what to do. The help menu should actually help the person navigate and find his or her way. So GUI development, as I said, we've just following your phase 1. Make sure that there is easy navigation between the tabs. Some use different forms. They use many forms. Some actually prefer using page controls. Some use the main menu option. All those are perfectly fine, as long as you do not only have one form. You should be having more than 2 forms, or more than 2 page controls, or more than 2 menus. If you're using panels, you can also use panels, but there should be more than 2 of them to show that you have actually done a comprehensive job. There should be easy navigation using the tabs and the clear layout when you are following HCI principles. HCI principles, human-computer interaction. It should be clear. Your screens should be clear. They should be consistent. The data components should be bound correctly. Here is an example of a form that I've put up here. As you can see here, there is, in case, please log in. If you do not have an account, sign up. That is meant to actually help the what? That is meant to help the person using the program. And you can see the note that I've actually added here, that add screen tips, help menu, so that the user can be directed on what to do. So it's very important. This could be your first screen that you are using to log in. After logging in, then you're moving on to a second form. That is perfectly fine, but make sure that the navigation of your forms or your program is proper. Now, if I go on to the next slide, which is presenting here a DB grid, it is compulsory to have a DB grid where you manipulate most of the data. You can see there, that's an example of your DB grid. That is the DB grid that you have. Your data will be presented over there. make sure that you connect to the DB grid either through SQL or you connect through Delphi programming, which we sometimes call ADO programming. And basically on the database, we need to make sure that there are statements that are actually dealing with things like insert, delete, sort the database, working with two tables, update, edit the database, dynamic search. In other words, you have got a string that comes in or an input that comes in and you search according to the input, display all, of which if you're dealing with SQL, you could be using select star. You can do a search. You can even search with criteria. In SQL, using things like those statements should be actually in your database. The database carries the bulk of your marks. The database carries the bulk of your marks. Make sure that your screen that is dealing or manipulating the database is so clear, because that's where most of the processing in your program is happening. If I move on, part of your rubric says we are looking at the data dictionary, where we look at the different variables and components, the variety, appropriate variable types, using local and global variable, proper naming conventions like I number, S name, prefixing components. I've tried to show you an example here of the Hungarian naming convention. If you look at this one, although that's not a proper one, because my Form 9, if you check here, my Form 9 is still saying Form 9, when it is supposed to be FRM and the name. So this is very important that you name all your components properly, name all your components properly. But if you look at, for example, DB property, that's properly named, IMG backgrounds, which is an image, IMG is a prefix for image, PNL, which is a short for the panel. So that's how you prefix the naming of different components. Also, I've also put up this screen to show you that you're going to use different components. You use different components, and in using those different components, they are of a T type. They are of a different type. As I said there, make sure that you name them properly, make sure that you prefix them properly. The rich edit is normally prefixed as RED. RED standing for rich edit, EDT standing for edit boxes. There are so many. Make sure that you name them properly. You will lose marks if you still leave it as Form 1, Edit 1, Label 1, Panel 1. Make sure that you name them properly. Variable declaration. Variables are supposed to be declared as of class scope, global scope, or local variables. I've taken a screenshot here of the different variable types here. If you look at in cost, it is an integer. It is declared globally. You can also declare some other variables locally. When you're declaring them locally, you're declaring them within the procedure. When you're declaring them within the procedure, they are only active in that procedure. After that procedure, they cease to exist. And it is very important that if you are working with a form that has got different modules, you have both global and local variables, because the global variables will allow you to use them in different other modules. Code development excluding databases. Make sure that you have got a clean structure with functions, procedures, and methods. You have done different methods and procedures. Make sure that you use object-oriented programming, OOP, using classes and objects. Also do defensive programming. Do validation, things like try, except, blocks need to be there. Remember, you're trying to make sure that your database, your program is as correct as possible. So validation is very important. Make sure that you have also included things like text files. Text files, according to the rubric, you're supposed to use text files. Make sure that there is data that is either read from the text file or written onto the text file. That's where you write or read onto a text file. Make sure that you have used nested loops and conditions. Nested loops and conditions, we're talking of if statements, we're talking of case statements. Nested loops, the for, the while, and the repeat loops. All those loops, you can use that. Efficient input, processing, and output. Avoid a program where you just input data and then you display. That program does not show any processing. The program is meant to process. The program is meant to process. It is very important that your program processes data. It fetches data from somewhere else, manipulates, changes, compute, generates something new from the data. That is evidence of processing. Then that is then taken over to output. That is then put as output. I've also given you an example here of text files. The rubric says excellent. The rubric says excellent and relevant use of text files. I've given here an example of how you could use a text file. Although this is now a combination of lots of things. There is validation at the top there. And then there is a data module that we are using. And then this is ECDoE programming, which we sometimes call Delphi programming. So ECDoE table is opened, and then there is testing whether the table is not at the end of the file. Whether the table is not at the end of the file, and also whether be found is true. If that is the case, then it goes on and then writes the information onto the what? Writes the information onto the text file. It will write the information onto the what? Onto the text file. You can see here, assign file, reset file. If file exists, security that, then show the message. So you need to use text files one way or the other. Make sure that you use text files. Use things like classes and objects. I've put in a screenshot here to try and show you how you could use your classes and object. There are your private variables. If you look there, there are your private variables that are there. And then there are your methods, starting off with your constructor create. Some of them are procedures. Some of them are functions. I hope you know the difference between a procedure and a function. And some of them are also parameterized. If you can see there in the brackets, they are parameterized. These are different methods that you could use in your PET to make sure that you have implemented and used OOP. Do not just throw in OOP for the sake of using OOP. Make sure that OOP, the use of OOP makes sense. The use of object-oriented programming is relevant to the program and it makes sense, or it is meaningful to the program. Documentation. We're looking at make sure that there are comment lines, also help tips. We have talked of tool tips. We have talked of error handling, developer notes. Make sure that all that information is available for the person who's going to use the program after you. It is very important that as a programmer, you put in some documentation to help the teacher marking and to also help the other person who's going to use your program to understand what is happening. Before each procedure, put a comment line there. Tell us what the procedure is about. Just a small sentence there, just to explain what is happening in that procedure, so that when we are also marking that, we also understand what is happening. Testing. You need to make sure that you test your program, test the program with data that is within the range, test it with the data that is outside the range, test the program for errors. How does it respond in errors because your program should be perfect and error-free. Make sure that you test it with boundary and extreme data, document test cases with expected versus actual results. That's very, very important that you document your program. Finally, you make sure that you submit your program. Before you submit your program, the teacher is going to make sure that you have put everything in one folder. Remember, Delphi files operate as a group. It's a batch of files. Make sure you put all your Delphi files in one folder so that the program can run properly. Inside there should be your database also. Inside there, all your .pas, Pascal files. Make sure that there is also the MDP, which is your database. Your text files are in that folder. User and developer documentation, if need be, it is there. And then you can go on and submit your program. Make sure that you have actually implemented all these different tools that we have just talked to you about, because whenever marking is done, we mark whether you have used the database, which has got the most marks, whether you have used object-oriented programming, arrays, text files, normal loops, normal conditional if statements and case statements. Make sure that everything is in your program and you make sure that your program is running. Give yourself time, go through your program, try debug your program. It is done by you. You should be able to explain the code to your teacher, and that will make sure that you're getting the best out of your pet. We have come to the end of our lesson. I hope you gained something. You can leave questions and comments below. Do not forget also to like and share the video. Share it with your friends and make sure that your friends also are doing a proper thing to make sure that they meet the standard of the pet. Okay, please do not forget to leave the name of your school so that we can give you shout out. Thank you very much.